You're about to hear something that could change how you see faith forever. In a dusty archive in Rome, a forgotten manuscript surfaced, its pages claiming the sign of the cross holds immeasurable, scientific power. Not just a symbol, but a force that defies explanation. Scientists, skeptics, and priests have clashed over it, and what they found will leave you questioning everything. Stay with me, this gets wild. Smash that like button if you're ready to be blown away, and comment below, what do you think the cross really means? Let's dive in. The story begins in 1978, in a small Italian village called Montefalco. A local priest, Father Giuseppe, was praying in his modest church when something extraordinary happened. As he made the sign of the cross over a sick child, the room filled with a faint hum, like electricity in the air. The child, who'd been battling a fever for weeks, sat up, completely healed. Word spread like wildfire. Pilgrims flocked to Montefalco, claiming their own miracles after Father Giuseppe's prayers. But here's the kicker, a physicist visiting the village, Dr. Elena Moretti, was there that day. She wasn't a believer, she was a skeptic, armed with a PhD and a knack for debunking. But what she measured in that church shook her to her core. Dr. Moretti had a portable electromagnetic field detector, standard gear for studying atmospheric anomalies. When Father Giuseppe made the sign of the cross, her device spiked. Not just a little, it went off the charts, registering a surge of energy that had no logical source. No wires, no machines, no explanation. She tested it again the next day. Same result. By the third day, she was calling colleagues from the University of Bologna, begging them to bring more equipment. They did, and the data kept piling up, the sign of the cross was triggering measurable energy shifts. But why? And how? This wasn't just a one-off. Over the next year, Dr. Moretti and her team documented 47 cases in Montefalco where the sign of the cross coincided with unexplained phenomena. Healings, yes, but also changes in air pressure, temperature drops, even faint light emissions. The Catholic Church took notice. Bishops arrived, skeptical but curious. They demanded the data be sent to the Vatican for review. And that's where things get really interesting, because the Vatican had been sitting on something big. A document, hidden for centuries, that might hold the key. That Vatican archive door. It's about to crack open. In 1979, Dr. Elena Moretti's data from Montefalco landed on the desk of a Vatican scholar, Father Lorenzo Bianchi. He was no ordinary priest, he was part of a secretive group tasked with studying phenomena the Church couldn't easily explain. Father Bianchi wasn't just intrigued by Moretti's findings, he was rattled. Why? Because tucked away in a restricted section of the Vatican Library was a manuscript from the 12th century, written by a monk named Brother Anselmo. Its title, De Virtute Crucis, The Power of the Cross. And its contents? They read like a blueprint for what Moretti's team was measuring. Brother Anselmo wasn't your typical monk. He was a polymath, part theologian, part early scientist, living in a monastery in Umbria. His manuscript claimed that the sign of the cross wasn't just a spiritual act but a conduit of divine energy. He described experiments, crude by today's standards, where he used magnets and water to measure changes when the cross was invoked. Anselmo wrote of vibrations in the ether, and light unseen by common eyes. Sound familiar? It's almost like he was describing the electromagnetic spikes Moretti's team picked up 800 years later. But here's the twist you won't believe, Anselmo's work wasn't meant to be shared. The Church at the time branded it too dangerous, too close to alchemy or heresy, and locked it away. Father Bianchi, poring over Anselmo's text, saw the parallels immediately. He contacted Moretti, inviting her to Rome under strict confidentiality. She arrived, expecting a polite dismissal from a stuffy cleric. Instead, Bianchi handed her a translated copy of De Virtute Crucis. Moretti, the hardcore skeptic, was floored. The manuscript didn't just echo her findings, it predicted them. It described how the cross, when made with intention, could align the unseen forces of creation. Moretti didn't buy the spiritual angle, but she couldn't deny the data. So, she did what any scientist would do, she pushed for more tests. And the Vatican, surprisingly, agreed, but only if they could control the terms. The experiments began in 1980, in a lab set up just outside Vatican City. The setup was meticulous, shielded rooms to block external signals, cutting-edge sensors, and a team of scientists and theologians working side by side. Volunteers, priests, nuns, and laypeople, were asked to make the sign of the cross under different conditions. Some prayed with deep faith. Others went through the motions. The results were staggering. When the gesture was made with belief, the sensors detected consistent energy spikes, small but undeniable. Without faith, nothing. It was as if intention was the key that unlocked the power. But what was this energy? Divine? Natural? Or something else entirely? The team ran hundreds of trials over 2 years, amassing a mountain of data. They even brought in neuroscientists to scan participants' brains. The findings? Making the sign of the cross with faith lit up parts of the brain linked to focus, calm, and connection, almost like a neurological signature of prayer. Skeptics argued it was just the placebo effect, but placebos don't explain electromagnetic surges or temperature shifts. The Vatican, meanwhile, was torn. Some saw the data as proof of God's hand, others worried it reduced a sacred act to a lab experiment. And then, something happened that threatened to bury the whole project. The lab doors didn't just slam shut, they were sealed by a decision from the highest ranks of the Vatican. In 1982, just as Dr. Elena Moretti's team was on the verge of publishing their findings, a cardinal with deep influence stepped in. His name was Cardinal Vittorio Russo, a man known for guarding the Church's traditions with an iron grip. Russo argued that the experiments risked turning a sacred act into a spectacle, something to be dissected rather than revered. But whispers among the researchers suggested another motive: the Vatican was hiding something bigger. Something in Brother Anselmo's manuscript that went beyond science and faith. Something they didn't want the world to know. Moretti was furious. She'd spent years on this, risking her reputation as a physicist to chase what she now called the anomaly. But the Vatican's orders were clear: all data was confiscated, the lab was dismantled, and the team was sworn to silence. Most complied, but Moretti? She wasn't done. She smuggled out a single copy of her research notes, hidden in a hollowed-out book. Those notes, combined with Anselmo's manuscript, became her obsession. She moved to Brazil, home to 130 million Catholics, where she could continue her work quietly, away from prying eyes. And that's where the story takes a turn no one saw coming. In São Paulo, Moretti connected with a neuroscientist named Dr. Carlos Mendes, a devout Catholic who'd heard rumors of her work. Together, they set up a small, off-the-grid lab in 1985. Their goal? Replicate the Vatican experiments, but this time with a twist. They wanted to test the sign of the cross in real-world settings: churches, homes, even hospitals. They recruited volunteers from local parishes, people of all walks of life, from street vendors to nuns. The results were jaw-dropping. In a hospital in Rio, a nurse making the sign of the cross over a coma patient triggered a measurable drop in the room's electromagnetic noise. Moments before the patient woke up. In a São Paulo slum, a priest's gesture during a prayer session caused a flicker in nearby lights, caught on video. Mendes and Moretti documented over 200 cases across Brazil, each one adding to the evidence. The sign of the cross, when made with faith, seemed to interact with the environment in ways science couldn't fully explain. They even tested non-Catholics, people from other faiths or none at all. The results? Mixed. Some showed small effects, but the strongest anomalies always came from those with deep belief. It was as if faith itself was a catalyst, amplifying whatever force the cross unleashed. Moretti began to wonder, was this a universal energy, tapped into by a specific act? Or was it, as Mendez believed, a glimpse of the divine. But here's the final twist, the one that'll leave you stunned. In 1990, Moretti received an anonymous package at her lab. Inside was a partial copy of a Vatican document, dated 1983, titled Protocollo Crucis. It wasn't just a memo, it was a directive to monitor and suppress any research into the sign of the cross's measurable effects. The document referenced Brother Anselmo's manuscript, claiming it contained knowledge too potent for the faithful to wield. It even hinted at earlier studies, from the 17th century, where Jesuit priests had observed similar phenomena but were silenced. The package came with a note, "Keep going, but beware." Someone inside the Vatican was rooting for her. Moretti and Mendez never published. The risks were too high, excommunication, legal threats, or worse. But their work didn't vanish. Copies of their notes began circulating among underground researchers, sparking debates that continue today. In 2023, a Brazilian university quietly launched a study inspired by their findings, using AI to analyze energy patterns during prayer. The results? They're still coming in, but early reports echo Moretti's data. The sign of the cross might just be more than a gesture, it could be a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. So, where does this leave us? Is the power of the cross a scientific phenomenon waiting to be decoded? Or is it a sacred mystery, meant to be felt, not measured? I want to hear from you. Comment below, has the sign of the cross ever felt powerful to you? Where are you watching from? And if this story blew your mind, smash that like button, share this video, and subscribe with that bell on. The truth is out there, and we're just scratching the surface.